I just don't enjoy her music.
No.
It's just
No,
not
no, no,
good.
no.
Really, in my opinion.
No.
It's
No.
not like good.
No! You're wrong! You're wrong!
'Cause I wanna be like the cool kids. I took a flight for some new kicks. The 1800s is the best, but no racial though.
This just kind of seems like another level of performative victimhood to the point where it just seems ridiculous.
I wish I could be racist, but you can't be racist. So we could be in times where there were people that were racist.
She's high on her own supply. She's drunk her own Kool-Aid. And on top of that, she needs to stop working with Jack Antonoff.
All her songs are in a book. I love to read. I like to read. You hater. Hater. Hell. Hell. Hell.
So it's very rare that I'm like ever scared or nervous to make a video because I usually have a set list of topics that I like to avoid, and Taylor Swift isn't one, but she does have a lot of adjacent ones. For example, I will never ever make a standalone video about Maddie Healy. It will never happen. I will never make a standalone Kanye video. And I also in general don't like to attract large amounts of unhinged stans who have never been here before and don't know me and my whole shtick. However, as someone who does consider themselves to be a Swiftie in the most casual sense, I do have some opinions on her newest album, The Tortured Poets Department. If you are a part of my Patreon, you've probably seen my initial reaction to it. And more importantly, I have a lot of thoughts on how stan and fandom culture, especially as it pertains to Taylor Swift, has affected the music criticism industry and machine as a whole. Before we get started, feel free to follow me on Twitter because my old account got suspended, and you can also connect with me on all of the social media listed in this beautiful link tree, which is in the description down below, including my Patreon, where you can get weekly bonus content for just $2 a month. Thanks so much. Okay, so quick recap. If you're new here, when I say I'm a casual Swiftie, that means that I enjoy a significant portion of her music, I'd say. I like some of her more commercial pop stuff from like Red, 1989, Lover, but my favorite records that she has ever put out are Folklore and Evermore. I think those albums really challenged her, pushed her sound forward. I think a lot of the writing on those albums is really great, especially when she's not writing from the point of view of herself, although we'll get back to that a little later. As far as what I'm not as big of a fan of, I'm not a huge Reputation girly, and I did not like Midnights all that much. I actually attended the first ever date of the Eras Tour in Glendale, Arizona back in 2023. Taylor Swift was my most streamed artist on Spotify last year, and that's the first time that has ever happened for me. And I can acknowledge that Taylor Swift is a consummate professional. She is very good at what she does. I understand why her fans have such a strong and sentimental attachment to her and her music, and have felt that way for over a dozen years at this point. I also understand that she has very much been a victim of misogyny in the Hollywood industry. Maybe not now, but definitely at some point. And that the need for her fans to fiercely defend her at any and all costs does come from a real place. I'm thinking back mostly to the Reputation era, where Taylor Swift was public enemy number one for, narrative reasons. And also because historically it has been a fun zeitgeist thing for people to dunk on whatever teenage girls are into. It was Justin Bieber, it was One Direction. I'd argue Lady Gaga even got a little bit of it in like the early beginnings of her career, although a lot of that was rooted more in like transphobia and homophobia than it was misogyny, I think. I have a whole separate video about this topic if you want to hear me go more in depth on it, but I don't think Taylor Swift fans ever truly felt vindicated for liking her until the massive popularity of the Eras Tour. The Eras Tour was the biggest pop culture event of the last 2 years. It sparked a nationwide conversation about ticket sales that they still haven't done anything about. Mayors were handing the keys of the city to Taylor Swift and thanking her for revitalizing tourism economies. The universal appeal of an Eras Tour not only brought out the diehard Swifties, but all of the casual fans who have liked some of her music over the years, even if they haven't liked all of her stuff. And review-wise, in the last few years, I think she's been riding on the goodwill of Folklore and Evermore, because both of those albums had more critical acclaim outside of the normal Swiftie fan circles. Now, I think it's safe to say that all of the positive fanfare that Taylor Swift has received in the last couple of years has looped back around into this inherent pop culture phenomenon where overexposure will just automatically make people hate something because it's popular. And that has been the go-to defense for Taylor Swift fans who are coming back at people for criticizing The Tortured Poets Department, which is the newest album that Taylor Swift released last week. Now, given all of the context that I just provided you about myself and my relationship with Taylor Swift's music, and the way I have perceived her relationship with fame and internet culture over the years, I think it's safe to say that I did not go into this album wanting to dislike it. Especially because, given the imagery and what Taylor Swift had said about the album prior to its release, I thought we were getting more, folklore vibes and less of the vibe that Midnights had, which is something that I personally would be into in accordance with my own personal taste, because let's not forget, music is subjective at the end of the day. Or rather, your taste in music, I guess. However, I have since given this double album a listen front to back, and I do not like this album. and that's okay. Now, I didn't like Midnight's either, so why am I so scared to give my opinion this time around? Why am I intentionally avoiding putting myself on camera this episode so that Swifties don't come into my comments and call me fat and ugly? Well, it's because this is the first album of hers in a while that has garnered a mostly negative response, and so people are losing their goddamn minds. Alright, so we'll get into a broader conversation about the reception of this album in a minute, but first I'm going to tell you why I personally am not fucking with it that much. And let me just give the disclaimer here that if you like this album, that is fine. If you disagree with me, that is perfectly okay. Congrats, we are both perceiving different facets of the human experience. Let me get the easiest and most common criticism out of the way. This is not just my point, 1,000 other people have, made this take already. But there is very little variance in this album in terms of the production. All of the songs sound very samey. That doesn't mean they all sound exactly the same, that means that they all just kind of have the same tonal quality and vibe, and after a while it all starts to blend together a bit. A lot of people have credited this to Taylor Swift's continuous work with Jack Antonoff, and I agree. In the second half of the double album, there are more songs that are not produced by him, and I tended to enjoy those songs a little bit more. Aaron Dessner and The National, I thank you all for your service each and every day.
Get up, cocksuckers. Salute the flag. Get up, everybody, get up. It's Memorial Day weekend.
I also think that the album could have been edited down significantly. There are so many tracks on this thing, and it doesn't really have a cohesive identity to me as an album. To me, it just sounds like a lot of vaulted shit that could have been on Folklore or Midnight's and was not good enough for either. And finally, I just think the writing on this thing is not that great. I think Taylor Swift is at her best lyrically when she's writing from the perspective of other people and acting more as an omnipotent storyteller than a central figure in the narrative. That's why I liked Folklore and Evermore so much. Because I get that writing music is inherently a personal thing, and I'm not saying that she shouldn't write about her personal experiences and life choices and story, but all of these songs just feel like lore dumps for her diehard fans to decipher, and I just personally find that really difficult to relate to. And I'm also not as dialed into the lore as other people. I don't want to feel like listening to the album is the equivalent of playing an ARG. I just don't gain any value from that kind of listening experience. Now, these criticisms that I have mostly fall in line with everyone else's from what I've seen online, but what I think Swifties are getting so triggered by, for lack of a better word, when people criticize this album is the fact that the criticism is often bundled in with actual digs at Taylor's persona. And so some of them feel like it's not the album actually being critiqued, it's Taylor as a person and by extension as a brand. For example, a lot of people argue that Taylor Swift and by extension her fans want to be seen and perceived as victims so badly, but like Taylor Swift has dominated the news and pop culture cycle for the better of 2 years now. She's one of the most financially successful people on earth. She has a diehard fan base that loves whatever she does. So like a whole song about how she's mad that people criticized her for dating Maddie Healy, like, yeah, that's not gonna go over well. And so it's this weird feedback loop where Swifties are going on defense of Taylor because they're interpreting any and all album criticism as personal attacks, when Taylor sort of opened herself up to that because this is such a personal album. And that feedback loop is made worse by the fact that the way that Taylor Swift stans are defending this album is, I'm sorry, it's absolutely fucking insufferable. Again, it's okay if you like her music and if you like this specific album, but to look at people who are saying, hey, I don't like this as much as the other work that she's put out over the years, and go, it's because you don't get it. It's because it's too smart for you. And these are the lyrics you're talking about? You are just asking to be dogpiled on. You are asking to be made fun of. Now, the last thing I want to touch on here is how stan culture is sort of infiltrating professional criticism. Because here's the thing. Professional TV, music, movie, and theater reviews have been around since the dawn of time. What qualifies as a review has been broadened out a little bit due to the internet. You can argue that me talking about this album in this video is doing a review. Not that I have any qualified credentials to do so, I'm just some fucking idiot with a microphone. But since this album debuted, there have been actual music publications putting out reviews of the work, and it's very clear that their actual opinions are being impacted one way or another by Taylor Swift stans. For example, you have one side of things where Rob Sheffield of Rolling Stone, who is notoriously a huge Taylor Swift fan, gave the Tortured Poets department a glowing review and deemed it as an instant classic. And sure, that's his opinion, he's a music reviewer, but also he is notoriously a diehard Swiftie who could be perceived as weaponizing clout from other Swifties on the internet. Like, I don't know why Rolling Stone would let the Taylor Swift guy write the landmark review of Taylor Swift's album for this publication. Why not give it to someone who is more unbiased biased and isn't necessarily a diehard Swiftie, just a reviewer of pop music? Is it because Rolling Stone may perhaps benefit monetarily from Swifties sharing, clicking on, and circulating this review? Perhaps. By the way, this is all tangentially related to the death of the online journalism model. I am not going to get into that today, but I have thoughts. And on the other side of this, you have outlets like Paste Magazine, who did post a more negative review of the Tortured Poets department, and purposefully omitted a byline of the author of the review so that they would not get attacked, harassed, or doxxed by Taylor Swift fans. This, in my opinion, is a frightening path that we're all headed down collectively, because whether you want to admit it or not, an important part of the art making and consumption process is criticism, and no musician should be immune to being critiqued, no matter how successful or popular they are, or how they've been mistreated in the past. Like, this is old channel lore at this point, but over a year ago, there was this video that I had up on my channel, and it's not up here anymore. Go to my Patreon if you want to see it, it's on the unlisted playlist, where I did a light critique of the persona of Melanie Martinez, and it wasn't even really harsh. Think more in like a How the Internet style, but like without the title and without the same kind of cadence. It was just sort of exploring her relationship to fame and internet culture and her various eras, you know, stuff I do on here all the time. And most people agree that I was not even that harsh toward her, and I got harassed on Instagram for days over it. There was like a coordinated harassment campaign between a bunch of Melanie Martinez stan accounts, and I just remember being taken back by like how many people live their life this way. They're so terminally online, and they find a sense of community in having a mutual fascination turned obsession with a celebrity or public figure, to the point where they find that attacking anyone who disagrees with them or, you know, quote unquote goes after their fave is like their hobby. It's their weekly fan club meetup. And I'm not trying to paint all Swifties with that broad of a brush. I know they're not all like that. I know people from any fandom community, like there's always going to be bad actors. It's not a good idea to paint everyone in the same light. But you should be allowed to say that you don't like an album and not have it be any more than that. You should just be allowed to have a trivial opinion that you can send into the void on these stupid little websites that we all find ourselves on. And conversely, you should be able to like and enjoy Taylor Swift's music without people in your ear constantly telling you that you are a bad person for doing so. Critique the taste all you want, but like, you are not an inherently bad person for liking Taylor Swift. And do I think that some of the critique of this album and this whole era has veered into just straight up woman bashing and making fun of like young women and teenage girls? Yeah, a little bit. Both things can have a little truth to them, but the internet is where all nuance goes to die. What did you think of the new Taylor Swift album? Let me know in the comments down below. And while you're down there, if you could also hit like and subscribe, I would appreciate it. I normally don't like ask for that, but I am so close to 100K, which is kind of crazy, kind of insane. Thank you all so very much for your support. I really do appreciate each and every one of you. And when I get to 100K, I want to do like one of those 100K subscriber specials where I just do a video that I really want to do and not worry about algorithm performance or anything like that. Just like a celebration of the channel so far. I'm thinking I might do the Batman Arkham games because people know that I have like deep obsessed lore with that, and also an Arctic Monkeys retrospective on AM in particular. I also was thinking of maybe doing like a I react to your bad pop culture takes type video, so let me know what you would like to see for the 100K subscriber special in the comments down below. Thank you so much again, and I'll see you next time.